All right, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a big agenda and a lot to get to, so starting promptly is the trickiest part of the night. This is the February 4th, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals. Zoning present here this evening are Robin Richards, John Bennett, Chappie McKay, Gordon Huey, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Robert Summerfield, Penny Ashby, and Craig Bennett. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and the recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested. Then we hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by the city's zoning code to swear you in to tell the truth. So if you do intend to speak tonight, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You'll signify by saying, "I do." Thank you. All right, we do have one deferral this evening, and that is agenda item B1 for 40 Piedmont Avenue and Wagner Terrace. So if we're here for new application B1, 40 Piedmont Terrace, that is not going forward, and we won't be hearing that tonight. All right, we'll go straight into the agenda here. Item A, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review minutes of the December 17, 2024 meeting. Members, you have received draft minute meetings, which have been circulated to you in your packet of materials for this meeting. And let's make sure we do have a quorum, and we do. So do I have a motion? Move approval. Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. Mr. Huey is recused because he was not in attendance at the December 17th. All right, the next item on our agenda is A2, 209 Wentworth Street, Charleston Village, Council District 8, TMS number 457-03-03-157, zoned DR1, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a deck that reduces the total side setback 7.5 feet of proposed, 15 feet of required, with a 51.5% lot occupancy. 35% is allowed. The owner applicant is Mary Mays. Mr. Summerfield.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this is a property here on Wentworth in the Charleston Village. Charleston Village neighborhood. You can see it's kind of mid-block on the zoning map. You can also see here on the aerial how how the home is very similar to the other homes in on Wentworth Street along Charleston Place. Hopefully you can see there. Let me know if you need me to blow anything up. So the proposal is to, for a variance, to build a deck that reduces their side setback. You can kind of see how the deck on the property here comes out to the side. Why did I think we had another? Do we have any more drawings than that? All right, so I'm just going to try to use my magnification. All right, so you can see here on the site plan at least where the deck is coming out. It's a relatively modest addition to the deck, but again, from a hardship standpoint, there's no evidence of a hardship from staff's perspective to justify that. The applicant has had support letter submitted from their HOA/neighborhood association, as well as two other neighbors in support of this, again, relatively minor addition to the deck that we just, when we apply the test, staff could support. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Robert. So we have a recommendation from the city for denial for failures to meet the variance test, the hardship test. And so we will first see if anybody here is opposed to this application. If you're opposed to the application, please raise your hand. All right, I see no one opposed to it, so we'll hear from Ms. Mace, if you are here.
I'm Mary Bates. So what I've learned is that when the houses were built, I think they were built in 96, 97, they were all built so that they were legal but non-conforming. So all of the decks are all outside of the scope of what they're supposed to be. So I just wanted to increase it by, on that other page, by a foot going towards one of my neighbor's house, and the two neighbors on either side, I had them sign that letter. And then a foot coming towards the back grassy area where my driveway is. And there's no windows on the neighbor's house where it would go a foot towards that way. There's no windows on that side of those houses. So it doesn't affect anything. We all have stucco walls that are kind of above your head. So you can't see in or out because of those highs. It doesn't affect anyone in terms of visual. And then again, the neighbors on both sides all approved it, as did the HOA.
All right. If I have any questions for the owner,
I'm just curious, what's the elevation of the deck currently?
It goes up, I guess, a story. So it's level. So they're all built up one story because we have a drive under garage. So it's up the level of the first, main level of the house. So it's one story up.
Oh, I see, thank you.
Yeah, right there.
and Robert, the condition that necessitates the variance is the setback, or?
Yeah, it's the side setback for the property. It would be a required 15 feet. It's only with this addition, it's 7.5. As Ms. Mace stated, though, the existing deck would be non-conforming to
Right.
that setback as well.
So she's expanding the
Yes.
non-conforming
And
use.
it does not, the stairs that go up to the front door are even further out than where that deck is going to be. So those even go way even further out from the deck.
Okay. Are you familiar with the elements of the hardship test?
I am. I came into the zoning office and we went over it, so I totally understand that.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any questions for Ms. Mace? Thank you. Do we have anybody else who is in support of the application in attendance? All right, we've got nobody else in support, so we are ready to discuss. Any questions for Robert? Discussion?
So the front steps are non-conforming and this new deck would be, looks like about the same size as those front steps, so it just continues a non-conforming use.
So, I mean, that you could look, technically, it's doesn't meet what we would do for the non-conforming, but as Ms. Mays stated, the zoning doesn't necessarily fit the development pattern for this whole block, the way it was developed, and so, lots of things don't equal up to the zoning. For our standpoint, again, it's a really modest addition. It just, because it qualifies as a variance, we just, from a staff perspective, could not recommend for approval, even though, again, she has HOA and the neighbors, and as she stated, there's no windows. The impact on any neighboring property is probably very de minimis, if at any.
Flip back to the aerial, was there an aerial view? Or was it just the?
So this would go. Again, so there's the existing deck and it would come out just a little further than it currently sits on that deck.
Is this something that would be addressed in the new zoning ordinance? In other words, are things and issues that are this minor things that could be
Yes.
approved at staff level under what we're contemplating
This
now?
small of an increase would be, we're contemplating that this would be something called an administrative deviation.
Right,
Because its percentage of potential gain is relatively small. And given all the factors that do exist on the property, we would probably just approve it
moving at
administratively.
staff level. moving back to
Again,
business.
our issue was unfortunately, it qualifies as a variance. So from a technical staff perspective,
Right,
we make our recommendation, but that's why we have the board who can take a look at it and listen more to support letters and make other determinations.
other discussion?
It's challenging. I think
It is.
you know, of the 4 parts of the test, I think the only one that meets is the last one, which is a little unusual. Frequently, that is the one that we're most hung up on, is the last part of the 4, substantial detriment. And I think that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, when you go through the factors, I don't know that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions. I'm not sure that those conditions apply to other property in the vicinity. I'm not sure that there's any prohibition or unreasonable restriction on the utilization. I mean, obviously, she'd like a little bit bigger deck. Sure. Great, but we also have to apply the tests, what we're supposed to do, so. That's struggle.
It's tough because you look at the modifications to the adjacent houses, they're larger decks, there's that's second story attached to the side of one of them.
I don't know if y'all want to continue discussion or not, but I'll make a motion for denial. I unfortunately don't feel like we can meet the requirements to grant a variance.
All right, so Mr. Bennett has moved to deny the requested variance. Do we have a second? Or any further discussion? Right now, we're looking for a second.
Second doesn't obligate you to vote in that way.
All right, going once, going twice.
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Richards is going to second the motion, so we'll vote up or down. A vote in favor is a vote to deny the application. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Mr. McKay is opposed. I would love to help you, and I'm sorry that we're confined to the limits of our test. The reason that we have to try to apply it consistently, even in these cases, is because we don't want applicants in the future to come in and say, well, you did it for so-and-so, and you did it for so-and-so, and so we have to apply the test in a way that's consistent and reasonable, and we're bound by the text. But I do encourage you to keep in touch with the city, please, and when these zoning changes are made, we're overhauling our entire zoning ordinance, and when those are made, you should be able to do what you would like to do pursuant to this application with relative ease, just not today, sorry.
Is there a timeline on that, when that's gonna?
I knew
Summerfield?
you were gonna ask that question. So ideally, we're gonna have that, a draft version that will circulate for the new code by the end of this calendar year with council or planning commission and council hearings on it in the new year 26. Unfortunately, it's a 60-year-old code. It's a lot of work and a lot of community effort still has to be done before we would move a draft forward. So we are unfortunately at least a year away from when the new code might be before the planning commission or city council.
And is there any possibility of appealing it or?
Yeah, I mean, so if you
Appeal.
yeah, you can appeal this. That's done through circuit court, right? Circuit court. So you would file an appeal with the circuit court, and then lawyers will get involved and have conversations about how we move forward.
Sorry, I wish we could help you. It's
That's okay.
one of those things.
Follow
Yeah.
the rules.
All right, thank you.
5 days from today to at least initiate an appeal.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, we're now into B, new applications. Number 1 has been deferred. That leaves us to number 2. B2, 158 Church Street, Peninsula Council District 8, TMS number 458-05-03-093, zoned MU2 WH, requesting a special exception under section 54-511 to allow a restaurant with 542 square feet of patron use area. 0 parking spaces are provided, 6 are required. The owner is 158 Church Partners LLC. The applicant is Brian Hellman. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so as you can see here in the zoning, this is zone MU adjacent to general business on in the rear and across Church Street. Also, as you can see, this is immediately across the street from the Cumberland parking garage. So the proposal, again, given the nature of downtown and the reuse of this building, you can see they have a floor plan here, kind of busy, but again, you can kind of see where the patron use area would be. It's again, not a very large space that they're proposing for this restaurant. It's immediately across the street from a public parking facility, substantial public parking facility. Staff is recommending approval of the special exception.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Is there anybody here who is opposed to the special exception request for 158 Church Street? If you're opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing no one in opposition, Mr. Hellman, is there anything you'd like to say about the application?
I can really answer any questions. For many years, this was Bocce Restaurant. It was closed, and then this property was going to be redeveloped at some point, so the non-conforming use was lost. And we're really just trying to regain that non-conforming use. The property extends to the lot lines. It meets every part of the test, which I'm happy to walk through if you'd like me to. It's in my application, so it's incorporated correctly.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Hellman? All right, any discussion, any questions for the city? All right, no questions. Am I ready to hear a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Okay, moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Richard seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No one is opposed, and the motion passes. The special exception is granted for 158. Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda, B3, 472 Meeting Street, East Side. Council District 4, TMS number 459-05-03-135, zoned GB, requesting a special exception under section 54-206Y to allow expansion of an existing late night use bar restaurant within 500 feet of a residentially zoned district. The owner is Robert Clement. The applicant is Joseph Gertz. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is in GB zones property. As you can see, there is some DR2F on that block on the Nassau Street side of the block. This is, you can see the arrow here, seeing it very much in the commercial area of Meeting Street. You can see this is the second story here for Last Saint. They are an existing late night operator. They did come before this board to get the original approval for their use here. At that time, I think they may have even spoke to using the second floor. However, at the time, the only area that was up for consideration was the ground floor. They are now expanding up into that second floor, ready to get that remodel finished and open. And so that's why they're before you. Again, this is within an existing building where this is already a part of an existing operation. Staff is recommending approval of this special exception.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here who is opposed to the application for 472 Meeting Street? If you're in opposition here, I see nobody in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant? All right, sir, is there anything you'd like to say in support of the application?
Sure.
And then if you guys want to go into more detail, the applicant did supply a number of slides that just show other commercial activities that are occurring in the immediate vicinity of their location.
Okay, I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name. Is it Goetz?
It's Goetz.
Goetz. All right, Mr. Goetz, floor is yours.
So like you said, we came before the board in 2020, March 2020, to see if we could get a late night exception. Before that, I think our business kind of hindered on whether we could get the late night exception or not. So at the time, we did not have an architect involved in the property. We always planned on using the upstairs space. I think there was a clerical issue in the square footage. We're only adding 400 square feet. I think on what you guys have in front of you says 40 patrons upstairs. That has now been reduced to 29 upstairs via fire code. So everything has remained the same. We're not doing business abnormally. We're keeping it all the same. We're just expanding 30 seats upstairs.
29 seats.
29 seats. Thank you.
All right, anybody have any questions for Mr. Goetz before you?
How do you?
Hold on, sir. We got a question for you. Sorry.
Real quick.
How do you access the second floor? Is it internal or is it through the
It
state?
would be external.
External.
There is a doorway going upstairs next to the front door of Blessing.
But that's on the Meeting Street front. not-
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. There is no rear exit, patron exit of that space. Yep.
Thank you. That was it.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right, any discussion? There's no need for opposition because there's nobody here in opposition and the city is recommending for approval, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, we've had no complaints about the operation or the operator. Property is shielded from the residential by other commercial property in between.
Unless we had something done on.
No, I apologize. I didn't hear you call for it though.
Yeah.
What is the hour for late night use? It's just like, really, it's an expansion on space. I'm just curious about that.
Late night use allows it to go after midnight. Two, yeah, till 2. I mean, they don't have to stay open that late, but allows them to stay open that late.
I'm gonna for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett's moved to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Huey has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. And the special exception for 472 Meeting Street is granted. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on our agenda, B4, 1978 Ferguson Road, Ferguson Village, Council District 12. PMS number 337-00-00-049, zoned DR3, requesting a special exception under section 54-501 to site a mobile home on a lot of insufficient size. 0.335 acres are provided, 1 acre is required. The owner applicant is Bernard Uri. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is property that is in the DR3 zoning qualification, which incidentally is the zoning district where if you want to be able to place a mobile home, that is your essentially only option. This is another place where we're going to have some conversations around, is an acre really the appropriate size for that? How is that really different? Staff finds that this lot is sufficient. Will be consistent, the home will be consistent with other homes that are located within the area, within the zoning. And for that reason, staff is recommending approval of the special exception request. They do have one public comment was received in writing from a neighbor, and she is in support.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 1978 Ferguson Road? Okay, hold your horses. We're going to be with you in just a minute. First, we're going to hear from the owner, applicant, and anybody in support. So do we have Mr. Uri here?
Yes, that's me, sir.
Oh, that's you.
He's
Well,
the
come on
owner.
up. Well, you're not in opposition.
So I got another approval from Ms. Doris Brown.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
okay. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for the owner applicant? I don't think we have any questions for you, sir. If we do, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, any discussion? All right, is there a motion that's ready to be made? All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. Your motion has passed unanimously, sir, and the special exception for 1978 Ferguson Road is approved. Thank you, Mr. Uri.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B5. 505 Folly Road, James Island, Council District 11, PMS number 424-09-00-032, zoned RO, requesting a use variance from section 54-203 to allow instructional classes, food tastings, and hands-on cooking. The owner is Jacoda LLC. The applicant is Rashonda Grant. Mr. Summerfield, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is property that's on RO, it's on Folly, immediately across the street from much more intense zoning in the general business district. Many of the properties, might even say most of the properties in this area along Folly are zoned for some type of commercial. This property is zoned for commercial, but with the RO zoning to maintain the residential appearance for the home or the structure, which the applicant is continuing to do. Because of the RO zoning and that being the more appropriate zoning for this side of the street and in this street frontage, staff is not recommending for a zone change. Typically, if someone asks for a use, it's not allowed by the use district, we would say, well, get it zoned to do that. However, after looking at what is being requested, we believe that it can be done consistently with the RO zoning in this location. We believe that the applicant, having the applicant in there gets the house to continue to, or the building to continue to look like a house. which again is kind of the purpose of that side of the street. So staff is recommending for support of this use variance. It is important to note because this is a use variance, this approval would go with the land. So in a different instructional type of class could come into this location, but it does not give carte blanche for just any other type of more intense use. If someone were to come in with a compatible use that may not otherwise be allowed in the RO, they'd still have to come forward for a use variance. This location, I think may have gotten the record number of letters sent into my staff. And so there's quite a few of them, over 100 letters from local businesses and residents gave support. Additional 3 letters from organizations or other businesses gave very detailed letters of support in support of this small business operator. And again, to be clear, staff is recommending support of this use variance or approval of this use variance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Summerfield. I will also note that because it's a use variance, 2/3 vote is required. And I don't do math, but I can tell that with 5 people, I don't think 3 is enough. I think we're going to need 4 out of 5 because I think 60% otherwise.
I'll round up, right?
All right. So do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 505 Folly Road? Anybody here in opposition? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes, anything you'd like to say to the board? Come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. I am Chef Rashonda Grant. I have been a lifelong Charlestonian, and I specialize in Southern regional cuisine, specifically Gullah Geechee cuisine, and helping people to understand more about the culture. And that's not always possible in my catering and dining operations. So I have taken to doing a lot of presentations, and I have been able to do cooking and instructional classes in larger venues like the Camden Room, or on facilities like, Trinity Hall, as well as on the College of Charleston campus, which has been great. And now I would like to do, but those are typically like much larger groups of 40 to 50 people. I've gotten inquiries about people who are visiting, maybe families of 2 or 4 that just want to learn how to, make okra soup or how to make biscuits really well. And so in addition to utilizing this space as the administrative office for my catering business, as well as some storage for some of my more delicate catering supplies, I would like to be able to use the existing residential sized kitchen to be able to teach people how to make grits and biscuits. Really good grits and biscuits.
Sounds
Do we-
delicious.
Do we have samples? That's really the important question, I think, for the team.
Samples. Shut up. I did not think I would be appropriate.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Grant? All right, thank you so much. Anybody else in support of the application? Okay, thank you. Anything you'd like to say, or you're just along for the ride?
Love the food. I can recommend it.
Wonderful.
Food.
All right, thank you. Do we have any discussion? We have a motion. All right, Ms. Richards moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. 5 out of 5 gets it every time. So your application for the use variance for 505 Folly Road is unanimously approved. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is B6, 10 Ashdale Drive, Avondale, Council District 9, TMS number 418-14-00-134, zoned SR1, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a 2-story accessory building with a 25-foot front setback. 60 feet are required. The owner applicant is Carolyn Griffin. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is on the corner of Ashdale and Lindendale. Really need to try to memorize these names. Lindendale Avenue in West Ashley. So this is Avondale portion of West Ashley. So this lot, very much similar to other lots. Kind of the difference here, though, is the way the house orients on the lot is much more central, and it faces out to Ashdale Drive, which you would normally look at this property and think that's the side yard, but that actually ends up being the front yard. So the applicant is requesting to put, try to magnify this a little bit. Is requesting to put an accessory structure, and I know there was some confusion with a couple of the neighbor support letters. They said ADU, it's an accessory structure, a new accessory structure on this portion of the lot here. Obviously, they can't meet the 60-foot requirement. They are meeting the actual setbacks for anything else. In fact, if they had done this as an addition, there would be no variance. In fact, at one point, the applicant to try to move forward, because she's been working on this for a while, we had the conversation about an addition. Staff is actually, we are recommending for the variance because again, we believe that the lot is very narrow. The way it's oriented makes it not possible to do this as a separate building. But in order to do an addition, we think it creates a bunch of unnecessary, just unnecessary permeable or unpermeable surface on the property. It interferes with the use of the yard, sight lines. It just would, honestly, it wouldn't be great. So staff is recommending for approval of this. We do believe that she has an exceptional condition with the nature of how this lot was developed, the fact that she could otherwise be code compliant with an addition that would allow her to bring something over into the space. It just would be an unnecessary waste of a very long hallway in order to do that, which just doesn't feel appropriate and is not consistent with the context of the neighborhood, which is having a secondary structure that goes more on the vertical or perpendicular seems to be. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this variance for this accessory building.
All right, thank you, Robert. So the building that's proposed is to the right on this drawing?
Yes, it would be
Okay.
planned right.
All right, and that's a two-story building that's planned as an accessory?
Yes, sir. And it's for her studio. She does interior design, and so this would be her workspace.
Okay. All right, do we have anybody here tonight in opposition to the application for 10 Ashdale Drive? Anybody in opposition? Big no in opposition. Do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes, ma'am. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
Not unless you have some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I did forget to mention, we did have 3 letters of support from neighbors immediately on across the street from her on both the Ashdale side and the Linsdale side.
Okay. Does Avondale have a property owners association?
No.
Anybody have any questions for the owner applicant script? So it's going to be a studio for you? What kind of work do you do?
I'm a decorator. An old lady decorator. I downsized 2 years ago. And
Yeah, come on.
Sorry. We just need to make sure that we get it recorded properly for the record.
Yeah, thank you.
and moved to this space. I bought this house in 2006, so I was able to have a place to downsize 2 years ago, and I don't have enough room for all my stuff. I have 3 storage units. I'm looking forward to getting this going.
Okay. Is this accessory building something that you intend to rent out ever, either short-term or long-term?
No,
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Huey seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No one is opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance for 10 Ashdale Drive is approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B7, 50 Bogard Street, Cannonboro, Elliottboro, Council District 6, EMS number 460-08-01-128, zoned DR2F. requesting a variance from section 54-203 to allow a retail use and cafe with hours of operation Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. BZA-Z's previous approval in 2023 did not include hours of operation on Mondays. The owner is Lindsay Nevin. The applicant is Michael Bork. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this location is at the corner of Rose Lane and Bogart Street. This is in the DR2F zoning district, which is why in 2023 you had the previous case before you on this one. At that time, they did not request hours of operation on Monday. So they had very specific hours of operation that didn't include Monday. So that's why they're before you tonight to extend their hours to Monday. They've been very successful in their operations. And they, again, they're not doing anything different with the philosophers and fools branding and their use. They now have an interest in being open on Mondays, same hours of operation. They did have one letter of support from the residential neighbor immediately across the street.
All right,
I'm sorry, staff is recommending for approval.
staff is recommending approval of the variance application for Monday business hours, 50 Bogart Street. Is there anybody here in opposition to the application for 50 Bogart Street? Nobody is here to oppose this application. Do we have the owner or the applicant?
Applicant.
Yes, sir. Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, my name is Michael Burke. I'm the co-owner of Philosophers and Fools. To be honest with you, the primary reason we're asking for this is because in hindsight, we probably should have asked for it at the beginning. All new books come out on Tuesdays, so I have to be there all day Monday to wait for those to show up. So I would just like to be open while I'm there. So not being first time business owners, we just didn't really know what we were applying for the first time. Just kind of wanted to get that updated now.
Okay, so the proposed hours of operation that you would have on Monday are 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm just relieved because I thought for a minute, maybe we forgot to give you Monday hours. I'm glad that you didn't ask for it. All right, any questions for the owner applicant? All right,
I'll make a motion for approval.
okay, moves to approve.
Second.
Mr. Huey seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, any opposed? No one opposed, you're open on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda. B8, 55 Elizabeth Street, Garden District, Council District Number 4, TMS number 459-09-03-125, Zone DR1F, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a 245 square foot accessory structure with a 2-foot south side, 1-foot west side, and an 18-foot side street setback, 9 feet, 3 feet, combined total of 15 feet, and 25 feet are required. The owners are Katie and Ryan Lindquist. The applicant is Evan Gonzalez. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so again, this is at in the Rag Square area on Elizabeth Street at DR1F with a bunch of DR2F immediately in that area as well. You can see the aerial here. Important to note on this aerial, you'll see that there's an existing accessory structure in the rear of this property already. And so the proposal is not to put in something new. It is to replace an existing, I think it's supposed to be a garage. It feels very small to be a garage, but an existing garage with this new accessory structure. The accessory structure will have habitable space. It will also allow for, because in the existing garage is, as I said, I don't think it's actually big enough to fit a car in. And so with these changes, you will be able to actually park at least one vehicle on site where presently, I don't believe you can do that. Again, this is not taking up realistically any additional space that is not already occupied. It's in the same location as the previous or the existing accessory structure on the site. And it actually has the potential to improve the parking situation. For those reasons, staff is recommending approval of this variance.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here tonight who is opposed to the application for 55 Elizabeth Street? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owners or applicant?
Good evening, I'm Evan Gonzalez, the applicant, design professional for the owners. I apologize, we got this late letter from the direct neighbor next door at 53 Elizabeth in approval of our application. I think I emailed it. Yeah, worth noting, we're just trying to accommodate an off-street parking spot by reducing the existing non-conforming structure. Our applicant is gonna use it as a home office, guest quarters for the house. And that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Do we have any questions for the applicant or for the city?
I have a question, Robert. What, would we normally see if it's not an extension of an existing form of use, would it normally come before the board?
So, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
It's not an it's just an extension of an existing non-conforming use, correct? Or is it because it's being taken down and
It's
reconstructed?
because it's taking down and building a new structure. It's not reusing the existing structure and modifying it. And so it is replacing the existing structure, smaller footprint, kind of slightly reconfigured because it's arguably wider than where the existing structure is kind of narrow and long. This is wider and short. Maybe that's a way to describe it. So yeah, so we're here because they're removing the existing structure and replacing it with this one. Additionally, I apologize, I am remiss in commenting the fact that, again, this is a relatively smaller lot. It is oddly shaped. It's not the normal rectangular square that we would normally see. So it does have some site issues that also warrant from a staff perspective why being able to replace that structure makes sense and the recommendation for the variance.
And if it was to be used as a short-term rental space, would that have any, it wouldn't have any bearing on the decision? Right?
It would not, but it's not eligible for that either. Right? Yes, yeah, we double checked that piece. Yes, it's, as mentioned, our understanding is they just want to be able to have somewhere where a guest can stay if they have them. Otherwise, it's normally going to be their office.
Okay. You don't know, they don't intend to rent it out, do they?
No.
Okay.
No. And it doesn't have a kitchen as well in the structure.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. We appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Questions? Further questions for the city? We're ready to make a motion.
Move for approval.
Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance for 55 Elizabeth Street is granted. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. All right, the next item on our agenda, B9, 56 Nassau Street, East Side, Council District 4. EMS number 459-09-02-100, zone DR2F, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to reestablish a non-conforming duplex on a lot of insufficient size. 3,963 square feet are provided, 4,000 square feet are required. Requesting a variance to allow a staircase within a north side setback. 1 foot 8 inches proposed, 3 feet are required. The owner is Ebenezer Social Action Committee. The applicant is Barbara Looney. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so we do need to amend this request and drop the second variant component of the requested variance. Earlier today, staff working with the applicant determined that this part of the request actually is an exception that staff can do administratively via the current code. So we're dropping that component of this request from this application. As you can see, this property is on Nassau Street, DR2F, not far from where we were looking at a Meeting Street property just a short while ago. You can see it here. You can see the existing structure. It is an existing non-conforming structure. Previously, it was a duplex. However, it's not been occupied in the amount of time that would be needed in order to maintain its approval as a duplex. And so, given the zoning, that is what we're here for, because it's only a 4,000 square foot lot. It's just under at 3936 or 63 rather. That is the variance request. Again, this is what this has historically been. Staff is fully committed to seeing older housing or older housing lots become housing again. It's a very narrow, long lot, which doesn't really have anything to do with the use, but again, we're recommending for approval.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 56 Nassau Street as amended? Here in opposition? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, yes, ma'am. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
I do want to point out, hi, I'm Barbara Laney. We are, this property, the Ebenezer Social Action Committee, is a committee of Ebenezer Church, AME Church, which is the neighbor to the immediate south in that photo. Those are the education buildings in the sanctuary to the south. They, in that parking lot between their church sanctuary and the house, you can see that hedge. They are in the process of granting on the church property an easement, an access easement that will allow for parking in the rear, so that right now it does not have parking at all. So it will provide parking. That area of easement is much more than the 37 square feet that wouldn't be needed to get it into the threshold to have 2 units. So its effective use will be over 4,200 square feet for the lot.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Lenny. Anybody else have a question? For Ms. Lenny? No. All right, any questions for the city? Ready for a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
Mr. McCain moves to approve. Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the variance for 56 Nassau Street as amended to drop the second variance request is granted. All right. Next item on our agenda, B10 35 Gibbs Street, Charlestown, Council District 8, TMS number 457-11-02-015, zone SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a rear porch that encroaches into the rear setback. 5 feet 8 inches are proposed, 25 feet are required. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110F to enclose an existing non-conforming rear porch. The owner is SOBB LLC. The applicant is Julie O'Connor. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this property, as mentioned, is in the SR2 zoning district on Gibbs Street. The block is bounded by Council and Limehouse and Battery. You can see here in the aerial the property in question, sort of. It's kind of set back further than some of its neighbors on Gibbs. And that does create some issues for it in the rear. We should acknowledge. So the proposal is in 2 parts. There's the request for the rear porch that encroaches into the rear setback. And then there is the part for the special exception to enclose the existing non-conforming rear porch. Staff has a split recommendation on this. We are recommending for the special exception. We find that the proposed enclosure of the square, the proposed enclosure of the screen porch should not exacerbate any existing conditions on site, and seems an appropriate extension of the living area for the home. That said, the variance for the porch / deck in the rear, while it would be a beautiful deck, we don't find a hardship for having the deck extend that much. Like I said, we do acknowledge that the house is set back somewhat further than other homes along the Gibbs street frontage, which does make for a shallower rear yard. However, we couldn't get to a hardship for the new deck to be extend that far into the setback. So staff is recommending for the special exception for the remodel to enclose the existing porch, but we're recommending for denial of the variance for the new porch / deck encroaching into the rear setback.
Okay, thank you, Robert. We're just writing a couple notes here.
Is there a slide that has the porch that encroaches into the rear?
The existing porch or the proposed porch?
The proposed.
Okay, the proposed porch, yeah, so if you look on this one, it's this area here.
Oh, okay.
It's labeled screen porch, it's the new screen porch. So this would be the new area, and then the existing screen porch that would be enclosed, that's under the special exception is over here, where the new bathroom and closet would be in. I think I have that right, and Julia will correct. Yeah, she'll correct me if I got any of that wrong, but yes, that from this was where the porch was. This is where the new porch will be. This is where the house addition is. Although I think there's some stuff over here, some new walls and what have you, but yeah.
All right, do we have anybody here this evening in opposition to the application for 35 Gibbs Street? All right, I see several hands. We will hear from each and every one of you who wishes to speak. First of all, we will hear from the owner applicant. I see Ms. O'Connor back there. Are you going to present? Yes.
Yes, I am. Good evening. I'm Julie O'Connor. I'm the designer on this project. And thank you for that description. We have this great house that has sort of a dilapidated addition on the back that was a porch. Pieces have been enclosed. And we're going to, sort of rebuild it to make it better. And so our special exception is for the enclosure. You could go to the rear elevation maybe, or might be good. Yeah, so the drawing above is the as-built, so you can see part of it is a 2-story, part of it is 1 story on the left-hand side there with an open deck. And so that's what this special exception is for. We're actually going to roof that open deck on the 2nd floor. So that is what that special exception is for. And then the variance that we're asking for is for this porch. As you know, a porch, a 1-story porch would have a 10-foot rear setback. So we're asking for about a 4-foot 4-inch variance to go over that 10-foot line to make for a deeper porch. And as Robert mentioned, this house does sit further back on the street than other houses on Gibbs, so that's why it's a little bit unique. And we're hoping to gain that space. And just as an interesting point, and maybe Robert can answer this for me, but in all the years that I've come to the zoning board, a lot of times we have recommendations for modest projects like the one that you saw earlier. And because these setbacks were imposed on these properties well after they were built, especially a 25-foot rear setback in an urban setting seems like a lot. I think that's why staff oftentimes would recommend approval for these things, even though maybe they didn't technically meet a hardship test, but they were modest and they made sense in the context of the urban setting. So maybe that will be addressed in the new rewrite. I don't know, because I get it, the property is being used, it can be used. It's hard to answer that fourth question on the hardship test, but I was just wondering if maybe that was going to clean up some of the things that would always be sort of recommended for approval, even though maybe they don't meet the hardship test.
We're
Does
gonna
that
be
make
looking
sense?
very closely
Yeah.
at all of that, particularly
Yeah.
on the peninsula,
Right.
the lower, the south of line type of stuff, because we do have a number of properties where the zoning and the existing lot conditions don't really line up.
Right,
well.
it's more of suburban zoning with those big 25-foot setbacks than urban particularly. So anyway, this is going to be a really great renovation of a house that really hasn't been touched in a long time. It needs a lot of work. And the idea was to, have this one-story porch that's fairly low impact on the rear. So that's the request. Happy to answer questions.
Who's got questions for Mr. Connor? Anybody? Nobody?
What's the, what are the dimensions on that rear porch?
18 by 18.
It's not screened in. Right? Is it open?
It is screened,
It's screened.
yeah.
I have a question. For some reason, I don't see support or opposition, negative comments. Maybe they're just missing from my
No,
notebook. What's going on?
the owner went and knocked on doors, but didn't get any responses.
All right, so who is the owner here?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. O'Connor?
That was gonna be my question. I didn't see anything from South Battery, 102, 104.
Okay. All right, so do we have others in support of the application? That would include the owner? I would think. No? If you want to speak in support of the application, this is your chance, so now or never. Okay. Let's hear from the people in opposition, please. Come on up one by one, state your name, address.
Hi, my name is Khaki Grant and my family lives at 33 Gibbs Street, which is adjacent to this property. And we oppose the requested variance for 35 Gibbs Street based on three main components. One, it doesn't meet any of the conditions of the variance test as laid out by the BZA. Two, from the aerial view, as you noted, this house is closer to the lot line than any other house on the Gibbs block. And the proposed build will significantly limit light, green space, and views across lots for all of us in the Gibbs and South Battery block. And then third, our next and most important concern relates to water. As the city is planning for more resilient measures, this goes against that. And water is an issue that our family is constantly managing. We invested a lot of time, energy, and money in managing our drainage system, and we have real concerns that covering a substantial portion of permeable ground will create issues for all of us surrounding this property. And additionally, there is a large live oak that is not on the site plans. Just wanted to make note of that. In conclusion, we do not think any zoning measure exception should be made.
All right, thank you, Ms. Grant. Who else would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Robert Lowry. My wife and I live at 102 South Battery, which is this house right here. We've lived here since 1994, and so we've seen lots of changes in this area. And about every house, but Ms. King's house has been remodeled, and I don't I do think it needs a great remodeling job, and I'm sure that they'll do a great job on it. We have several issues, and one is, well, several is that, you know, the neighbors are partners in living. And one of the things we need to be able to do is to trust our neighbors. And years ago, these folks over here bought this house and asked for an exemption to build a shed like this. That was kind of the original plan in 1924 when this house was built. And so they had us sign off on that, and we didn't really look at much, but when they built it, they built a two-story garage that then evolved in that they tore down and built another two-car garage with living area over the top, which is frequently rented out currently. It's also got a 20-foot brick wall, right, 3 feet off our property line. So we have basically a 20 feet brick wall, 3 feet from our porch. So what this kind of brings, one of the things is that we have to be able to trust our neighbors. And as they discussed earlier, they did send us a letter asking for support, and I'll pass this around because if you look at what I have circled, and if you'll bring up their porch plan.
Tell me when.
Back here, their porch plan. In this, you'll see our letter of support. The letter asking our support did not include this chimney here. So last night when we were looking at this and saw that, it was like, okay, well, this is not really a screened-in porch. This is an open room that now will have a 5-foot brick wall, or a brick wall 5 feet from our house. So, you know, one of the things that we have to be able to do is trust the developers to not only do what they say, but to do it in a way that conforms. And one of the things that we've learned over the last 30 years is it's much better to ask for forgiveness and permission for some of these things. So when we see this, we really lose our trust in what they're going to do. The creation of not only the wall to our right at 100 South Battery to this basically helps create a canyon in our yard. We have our Calhoun Canyon. We have Concord Street, which is now a canyon with the big hotels. And now we're going to lose not only light, but as mentioned, a large tree, although it's not a protected tree, it's still a large tree that provides shade to actually 5 lots. So with all these things, you know, it is going to affect at least 5 yards and going to have a significant negative effect. And sorry to be a rambler, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, not an orator, so I hope I haven't confused y'all too much.
Thank you, Dr. Lowry. We appreciate it. Who else would like to speak in opposition?
Hello, I'm Karen Phillips. We own the property at 37 Gibb Street to the west of this property. We do not support this either. We just don't think it needs to be that large of a porch. And we had no notice from anyone about this until we saw the sign. So they didn't try to reach out to all the property owners in the neighborhood. So.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. All right, anybody else who would like to speak in opposition? All right, seeing nobody else, we'll hear from Ms. O'Connor on rebuttal.
Thank you, and thank you to the neighbors for taking the time to come, and certainly would love an open dialogue with the neighbors. The owners are very welcome to that, and I apologize if 37 Gibbs wasn't notified. In terms of the fireplace, we added that before we submitted to you guys. It was certainly not meant to be a bait and switch, and truly apologize if that upset Mr. Lowry. We certainly was not unintentional. And then, the only other comment that I will make is in terms of water. We are not asking for a lot coverage variance. We are under the we are right at the 50% that is allowed by the zoning code. So We would certainly be handling our own drainage as it's illegal to affect other people's properties with drainage, so that will definitely be a part of the plan, but we are not asking for lot coverage variance. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. All right, questions for anybody? Discussion?
Mr. Summerfield, can you remind me one more time what the city's recommendation was on these two items?
Yeah, well, I think, I know you asked Mr. Summerfield, but I wrote it down. Special exception, city is recommending yes. Variance is, city is recommending denial.
Correct.
And for the special exception, I think I've heard evidence today that would support the opposition on a special exception in terms of light and impact on other properties. You know, I'm not sure where this tree is, but apparently, yeah, can you address that? I didn't hear you address the oak tree.
Yeah,
Is there gonna be the loss of an oak tree here?
no, so if the variance, so the variance is for this porch on the back, and if we don't get the variance, then the tree will not be affected. The special exception is for an existing footprint, so certainly doesn't affect the tree.
Okay, so the variance would affect the tree, the special exception would not.
Correct, the special exception is within an existing footprint, yeah.
And that is why staff was supportive, because it didn't go out further, didn't really go up further. It's enclosing
It's a
existing space.
One story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that wouldn't be an increase in lot coverage at all, that would just be.
Correct.
So out of curiosity, where is the tree sited broadly on the property? Is it near that setback line or is it further back?
If you bring up the picture, I'll show you the tree.
I don't, yeah, maybe Bill, you can answer their question is, would that tree issue come before site design?
No.
It's not big enough.
Well, I want to say no, but I don't know because I don't know what the size is. It would depend on what the size and condition of the tree is. I will look to my tree expert over here to make sure I didn't say that wrong.
Less than 24 inches in diameter, it's not protected by any city ordinance.
Only protected.
All right, with respect to enclosure of the porch, Ms. O'Connor, is there is the height raised at all on the existing porch to what is proposed?
Yes, so if you, yes, right here. And that, I'll just do here. So right now, this section right here is 2-story. Yeah. This section right here is 2-story.
Okay,
This is 1-story with a deck above. So we are asking for this to be enclosed as a 2-story element. So if you go to the site plan, Robert.
This or the actual site plan?
The site plan. Here. So the area that we
Existing or
are,
the proposed?
yes, right here.
Okay.
So the area that we're asking for the enclosure where it's an open deck right now is right here, okay?
okay,
Within the 9-foot side setback. But the reason why we need a special exception is because it's 3 and 9 for a total of 15 in this zoning. So even though the existing footprint is inside of the 9-foot setback, you still need another, say, 2.5 feet for the combined setback. And that's why we need a special exception. It
okay.
actually meets the 9-foot side setback, but doesn't meet the combined.
And how high will it be after construction?
So now if you could go back to Robert, the rear elevation.
Yeah, pop to A204, it's the last one.
Yeah, so it will,
There you go. That gives a good indication on your left side.
Yeah, so it's lower than the existing house, but it meets the same plate height.
Okay,
But because it's more narrow, it's shorter. Does that make sense?
yep. All right, well, the board will be left to decide whether or not that creates potential impacts on adjacent properties.
That's what I'm wondering, if the height of that also affects the
Light,
light, air on
air,
the
visibility.
adjacent properties. So I'm inclined to agree with the neighbors on this one.
Slide back on 204 and just inch up just a little bit. That gives us an idea where it impacts the eaves from the original. Yeah, well, if you don't want, put both of those in the same picture. Just reduce it.
Yeah, that'd be nice
Zoom it
if
back
it,
out.
if it gave me options to.
There you go. Just a
I
little
can't
bit
zoom
more.
I can't zoom, it gives me one zoom.
Okay, there you go. That's perfect. That's
Oh,
what we're
okay,
looking for
well,
right
he's
there.
got different tools.
Perfect.
Slight increase. Edge.
Further discussion?
Was there any opposition to this part? Just to the
I believe I heard at least Ms. Grant and probably others opposed to both the variance and the special exception. If I'm correct in that, if you oppose both applications, will you please raise your hand? Yeah, okay.
Can I ask a question?
Please come on up.
Matt, I think this goes to you. Is it true that on the east side, that exception that you're asking for, it's higher on the east side, the elevation is?
Maybe I don't understand the question.
So I just want to make sure that we understand, is the elevation higher on the east side? Is the elevation the same on the east and the west side?
Same.
Okay. I think I misunderstood.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's the same.
Still in opposition.
Okay.
Or do you want to separate these?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You were reading my mind. I was thinking that exact thing. And so maybe we take the easier one first. Do I hear a motion on the variance?
I move to deny the variance.
All right, is there a second? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. So the variance is denied by unanimous vote. And now we still have the decision to make on the special exception. Any further discussion on the special exception, or are we ready to try to put it to a vote?
Robert, could you explain the city's view on this one more time?
Yeah, so this is an existing footprint, so the non-conforming status, as mentioned, one, it meets that side setback of 9 feet, it doesn't meet. In our zoning code, we have this thing where it requires a combined setback of 15 feet. But because the house is built almost to the lot line, there isn't the 3 feet on the get to the right drawing here. Let me zoom in here. So as you can see, the house is right on the plan right lot line here. So there's not 3 feet there, or there's not what would need to be 6 feet here to go along with the 9 feet here to meet the 15 feet. That's just not possible. So that's what makes any construction on this non-conforming. So the existing area where the existing screen porch and balcony area are those are non-conforming. So the request for the special exception has to do with, again, back to Ms. O'Connor's point from the beginning about the fact that we have zoning district standards that don't necessarily match up with the development patterns. And in this case, we have a requirement that you have a total of 15 feet of side setback split between the two sides, 9 feet on one and at least 3 feet on the other. Looking at my team, make sure I say it right. In this case, they're meeting the 9 foot. The lot was not developed to comply with the setback on the other side, so they're not meeting the total 15 feet. But because it's existing condition and they're just enclosing that space and making additional living space, that is, again, that is usually something staff will support because it's within the existing roof line of the house, so it's not going higher than the existing house. It's existing footprint, so it's not exacerbating any lot coverage issues, and they're not doing any bump out, so it's not further exacerbating the non-conformity as it relates to the setback. So for those reasons, staff was supportive of the special exception, but we could not get to a place on a hardship for the variance for the completely new porch.
I guess my concern are the neighbors concerned about for the special exception, the light and air, and maybe it would be helpful if the owner architect reached out to the neighbors and.
We did try. We stopped by everyone's house. We dropped off letters as well.
If you're gonna speak, we need
I'm sorry,
you to come up and identify yourself for the record,
My
please.
name's Eileen Sharon and I'm with SOBB LLC.
Yeah.
We did on multiple occasions, stop by and try to reach out to all the neighbors individually, as well as when we did speak to two, and when we didn't get any response, from walking the neighborhood, we dropped off letters, which had that elevation on it at the time. I do believe there's it was under our understanding that there's possibly renters in 37 Gibbs, and we did drop off a letter there, so it may not got to the owner, but we did know who it was. Our intention is just to make this house better than it is. It's a beautiful old home that just needs some love and attention, and we just thought with some outdoor space, which it will be screened in on all sides except for the fireplace, to just have that open air feel that somebody could enjoy the small area in the back.
So I want to make a clarification for the record. So I misstated on the setback. So this is SR2, so it's 9 and 9. So it's completely non-conforming on the that previous site plan right. It is conforming on the other side. So, but the house is non-conforming as it relates. So that makes the enclosure. I do want to point out, so again, this was a picture that we were looking at again when we were doing our evaluation. So when you look at the south elevation and you see this is there's no through space or through view or anything being impacted by the addition because there's already the existing upper story projection out here that they would be enclosing and just making this all a flat, consistent rear wall. So again, from a staff perspective, that special exception seemed pretty consistent with how we recommend on special exceptions for enclosures of existing space. If it's not going to potentially exacerbate any existing condition, non-conformities or other conditions. And again, in this case, it's not, that doesn't create a blockage because it's already, any view, their corridor is already blocked. So just wanted to point that out.
Well, but move that picture back.
Sure.
Please. By increasing the height there where you've got, so that's going to be lifted up, right? So that's going to result in some light obstruction. I don't know how much.
I would look to the architect, but yeah, I believe they're like the new gable, like there's a secondary gable here, I think on the plan, so that there'll be a new roof line that'll come down.
Yeah.
Here, but doesn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't go above the
Not above the
existing.
existing on the right.
Yeah.
as we look at it now, but still above the existing on the left.
Yes.
You know, with the back porch probably needing to be restudied, possibly. And this issue standing out, sometimes the applicant likes to withdraw the application or that request for an opportunity to speak with neighbors. Rethink that area. I
Well,
don't
you
know
can
if that
always
would be-
move to defer. if That's your wish.
We could, or sometimes they want to withdraw.
Not seeing a withdrawal.
Okay.
I make a motion to defer.
All right, there's a motion to defer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion to defer, seconded by Mr. Bennett. All in favor, please say aye.
We're deferring the special.
This is we've already voted on the variance. The variance has been denied. The motion
Deferring.
is to defer the special exception application. To give an opportunity for the owners to more fully vet their neighbors' concerns on the special exception.
It also gives an opportunity to study the deck. Now, the deck is not going to be quite as far.
Right, okay, so Mr. McKay has moved to defer. Mr. Bennett has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion is passed and the special exception is deferred. The variance has been denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the final item on our agenda is B11, 913 Fifth Avenue, Maryville, Ashleyville, Council District 9, PMS number 418-07-00-127, SR2, requesting an appeal for reconsideration of the BZA-Z Board's decision to deny construction of a single-family residence on this lot. The owner is Ashley Cooper Homes, LLC. The applicant is Joshua Blackwell. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I might, just real quick, we do have legal counsel here, has joined us this evening. I feel like because of some of the conversation, because we have a new member of the board who wasn't a part of the original hearing, that it would be beneficial if we go into executive session to get advice from legal counsel before we open the proceedings on this one.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. McKay
For
moves
advice
to,
from council.
Mr. McKay moves to go into executive session to receive advice of counsel. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. We're going to take a quick recess while we go into executive session. We'll be back with you.
I'll move to exit executive session.
All right, Mr. Bennett, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Richard, seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. We're out of executive session. No action was taken. No decision was made. Mr. Summerfield, please present our B11.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee or board rather, so this is an item, or this request is related to. Make sure I have the date right. I apologize. I'm trying to remember the date. The board decision to deny a special exception for a lot of insufficient size and a variance for a rear setback on property on Fifth Avenue in the West Ashley neighborhood of Maryville, Ashleyville. The request that's before you, and the applicant will go into their reasons why they believe that it's reconsideration is an appropriate request. Unfortunately, there were grounds during the public hearing on this. I did not include in my presentation one of the letters that we did get from a distinguished member of the community, Ms. Hamilton, and that may have provided some additional insight into y'all's discussion. So with that, staff is recommending that you have the potential to reconsider these items or this item or elements of this item.
Thank you, sir. All right, I know we have people in opposition to the motion to reconsider, correct? You're in the second in opposition.
For the record, we did get two public comments on this, both from Neighborhood Association presidents, one from the Maryville Ashleyville Neighborhood Association, and one from the Ardmore Sherwood Neighborhood Association, which was essentially consistent with testimony that neighborhood president had given during the public hearing.
Okay. And were those letters in support or in opposition?
Opposed to any additional
Opposed to
hearings.
reconsideration. Okay. All right, so we'll hear from the owner applicant.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Blackwell. I'm the owner of Ashley Cooper Homes LLC. I know we've gone over this property a couple times now, so I will, make it very, very quick and efficient as possible. I'm here for reconsideration of the previous denial, or the special exception for a lot of insufficient size and a variance for 14.4 foot back setback. Before I get into detail about why we should be approved of these two items, I'd like to address the letters. He was in the previous testimony, Mr. Vogel, who is the president of the Ardmore Sherwood Forest. He has gone into detail about a drainage problem in the back, and I understand it doesn't have anything to do with 913 Fifth Avenue. Again, I want to reiterate, I had building permits. I had a DOT encroachment permit, all passed, okay? The subject property he is speaking about, okay, it's right here, okay? So it's right there. And pretty much that property is covered with hard surfaces of about 85%. Okay, my property is at 22%. Okay, and I never even saw where water was an issue or anything. But he's asking for a drain and he's telling people, making very defamatory comments publicly, okay, that I did something incorrect. All right, and I did not. I wouldn't have been approved by this city. And what he's saying is that the city inspectors don't know what they're doing by writing these things. Okay, because like I said, I went through the process. Everything I've done, the same as Maryville and Ashleyville, everything has a building permit. We go through every single code, okay? But I don't want this to be about that property. Because of course, it's defamation of my character, and that is wrong, one, okay? I understand he's very upset, but there's root causes to every reaction. Okay, when he comes on my property and invades my property, which has a private property sign 1, and he's asked to leave because it's at the borderline of harassment. Okay, and he turns around and tells me, welcome to the neighborhood. Okay, and then threatens to, because he saw the house go under contract, and threatened me with, hey, I'm going to call your listing agent and I'm going to interfere on the contract because he has some conspiracy theory about some water. Okay, that is illegal. So I advised him, I will take legal counsel if that has to happen.
okay, by threatening me like that. So painting a picture of he's a saint and making me look like this type of bully and some bad builder is ridiculous. All right, but I'm gonna move to the matter at hand, which is 913 Fifth Avenue. Okay. You know, Ms. Higgins has recently submitted a letter also, you know, with some slanderous comments also there, laying out false items like I built 832 Brookfield Street home on the property lines. If that was the case, this board would have met me much sooner to get approval for that also. A licensed surveyor who was produced the site plan shows the home inside the required setbacks and was sent over to the planning and zoning department, which ultimately was approved without any issues. So again, that is a false claim. She claims that I added on to a remodel that we did on 963 Main Street. Wrong again. We took down an old shed in the back and had building permits that the house has been sold, has permit completely signed off. I don't want to keep going over this because every home or land that I've acquired in Maryville, Ashleyville neighborhood has a full building permit, which requires not just paying a fee and walking away. That involves inspection on top of inspection. I truly think Ms. Higgins and Mr. Vogel think we just show up, start building without any authority behind us. It takes anywhere from 30 to 60 days with multiple reviews to get a building permit. If I was such a bad steward of the neighborhood or I didn't follow the law, I would not go and do all this. I followed the process and followed the law and what the code states. Moreover, on this letter, which claims that I tried to sabotage a neighborhood association meeting. I reached out to Ms. Higgins on December 9th about joining the neighborhood association meeting. On December 4th, for her December 14th meeting. Her reply was, your request for a variance was denied by the city of Charleston and no need for you to join this meeting. I then informed Ms. Higgins that I'm an owner of other property in the neighborhood, which one is a physical home, not just land, physical home. So it does not matter about 913 Fifth Avenue at this point. I should be able to attend a neighborhood association meetings. She doesn't understand that she invited me to this December meeting, December 14th meeting, prior to the December 3rd BZA meeting, knowing that we were up for review. We were deferred on the first meeting when we came in here, which moved us to the December 3rd. Her meeting wasn't until December 14th. So even the previous neighborhood association president, Diane Hamilton, which was spoke about here, the letter that she had written after the fact, I think, wrote a letter of support for us to build the home on 913 Fifth Avenue, because she understood that our BZA meeting was prior to the next neighborhood association meeting. Even Ms. Higgins herself, they had stated in the last meetings, all are welcome to join the neighborhood association meeting. At the previous BZA meeting, I tried to join this meeting via Zoom link on December 14th, and with the intention of being an engaged member of the association, but Ms. Higgins decided to block me from joining that meeting. So I left it at that. She has written that I am a bully. How can I be a bully when we've only had 3 emails between each other in 6 weeks? I don't engage in that. My response back is, okay, that's fine, but I responded back with, I own other property. I feel like sometimes I'm the one being bullied a little bit and slandered with these letters going public when there's no data to prove some of these things. There's nothing. It's just arbitrary comments. Ms. Higgins has stated that there is an ongoing problem of crime, drugs, and vandalism in her neighborhood that cannot be rectified. Are these people supporting and assisting in the bettering of Maryville, Ashleyville community? Are they working to preserve the neighborhood by continuing to be upstanding citizens, proud of where they live? Statistics shows vacant lots and condemned, unoccupied homes are hotspots for homeless people and crime. If Ms. Higgins was truly trying to preserve Maryville, Ashleyville community, she would have an open mind to consider the growth and development brings forth preservation and conservation. Ms. Higgins has addressed concerns about density. That is addressed. This is zoned a single family lot SR2. Okay, and on top of that, we are only covering 22% of the lot, which is allowed, I think, up to 40 or 50% of the lot coverage. In addition, she stated that there's no parking. We have proposed, per the site plan shown here today, a 9-foot wide and a 25-foot long driveway, which can accompany easily 2 cars. She talks about the size of the home being an issue. The home is 1,252 square feet heated and cooled. And the average size home in this neighborhood is around 1,200 to 1,400 square feet. She also talked about the character being impacted by the building of this home. To be fair, you have single wide trailers in the middle of the neighborhood, 1940s and 50s cottages with asbestos siding. 1970 brick ranches. So I'm trying to understand the character that is being spoken about. I'm proposing a modern home with superior material than a lot of the homes offered in the neighborhood at this time. And we had staff approval. But we're only here now because Ms. Higgins states the neighborhood association does not approve. But I feel that she does not represent the whole neighborhood per the support letters I presented. Considered but in conclusion, I hope the board members present tonight are able to form a decision based on facts, evidence, and proper reasoning, disregarding the heavily swayed opposition and their collective what I say goes. Their lack of righteous judgment will only impede their communities bleeding into the path of preserving Charleston as we know and love. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. All right, who else would like to speak in support of the request for reconsideration?
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Great. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Garrett Bean. I'm business partners with Josh Blackwell. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up in West Ashley. I was the owner of 963 Main Street. That has subsequently been sold. And as of tomorrow, I will be the owner of 1335 Fifth Avenue, another house in the Maryville side of the neighborhood. So thank you very much for allowing us to come here and discuss this reconsideration. As Josh mentioned, we in fact have 3 letters of support from the neighborhood that we got. There was a 4th letter from the former president of the neighborhood association, which we were unaware of and did not make it into the presentation, but we have since received a copy and seen it and read it, and it is in support of these undersized lots being developed and folks in the neighborhood being able to either sell the lots or build upon the lots, and I'll get into more specifics about that here shortly. So that is from Diane Hamilton. From my understanding, I think she still serves as the vice president of the neighborhood association. I was in attendance of the December 14th meeting through the phone, despite Ms. Hamilton's, Ms. Higgins' best efforts to block us, and I mean actually block us from attending the meeting, and I'll go into more detail about that as well. But Ms. Hamilton, as I said, is still the vice president and was a former president, has been in support of this building. Again, we have 4, current, not just homeowners, but actual residents who live in the neighborhood who've written letters of support. 2 of them serve on this neighborhood association. And I now have a copy of the neighborhood association minutes from previous meetings about this particular property. I think it's important to review that because we can finally get to the bottom of what are the concerns of the neighborhood and can we actually solve those concerns and address those concerns so we can hopefully all move on. I do think we can. I've read the concerns. There's 4 main concerns, and I think they're pretty easy to resolve. I think there's some misinformation that was given to some of the members of the neighborhood association. I'm not going to go into huge detail again about the history of the lots in the neighborhood. I know we do have 1 new member here. We did discuss last time the Charleston Commission on History, prepared by Dr. Nick Butler, who's a historian, discusses the history and how these lots were developed. Ms. Hamilton, again, the former president, agrees in her letter that in 1885, this was a plantation. It was subdivided into lots. The lots were 50 by 100 feet, so we have 5,000 square foot lots. That's where these lots come from. Again, sort of the issue that we've run into is 6,000 square feet is typically the minimum lot size that the city requires. The special exception was designed to hopefully grandfather property like this into existence. Ms. Higgins pointed out the last time we were here that this particular lot, 913 Fifth, actually had an existing house. So this particular lot has already been used for residential purposes. The house is no longer there. I'm not exactly sure how long ago the house was demolished, but it's not currently there. But the lot does have a history of being used for residential use. When Ms. Hamilton was speaking in her letter about this very same thing, about the concern with the 6,000, 5,000 square foot difference between the city's requirements and the neighborhood's history and development. She says, and I quote, "The change in lot size to 6,000 square feet has placed the Maryville, Asheville neighborhood in a problematic situation. Forcing the property owner to build a tiny house, live in substandard housing, or be unable to improve their property infringes on their rights and impacts the value of their property. Precedence has already been established since many property owners have been granted variances." So again, this is the former president of the neighborhood association. Okay, so I understand Ms. Higgins is the current, but you have a former president who has a complete opposite view of Ms. Higgins, who also represents other folks in the neighborhood with a similar view, and our letters support that. So this letter was missing from the last meeting. I think it's a very influential letter that shows that Ms. Higgins, when she says, "I speak for the community," she does not speak for the community. When you have the former president of the homeowner or the neighborhood association saying the complete opposite, then you can't come up here and say, "I speak for the neighborhood." When you have 3 other residents who've written letters, you can't come up here, and one of them is part of the neighborhood association. Then you can't say that you represent the entire neighborhood, because you don't. But Ms. Higgins obviously has her own personal views. I respect that. But the neighborhood as a whole has a diverse set of views, and not all of them share the same views. So Ms. Hamilton mentions that there's been precedent set in this neighborhood for new construction on undersized lots. So I'm going to go through just very quickly a few of them. 1124 Fifth Avenue, lot size 4,791 square feet. New construction, 2007. 1131 Fifth Avenue, lot size 4,791 square feet. New construction, 2010. 1127 Fifth Avenue, 5,227 square feet, built in 2020. 919 Sycamore, lot size 4,791 square feet, built in 2019. These are all undersized lots that have all been approved for new construction in the past. This represents over 2 decades of approvals and new construction being built in this neighborhood on these undersized lots. But the 5th one I want to go over is one that I was personally involved in, I didn't think of in our last meeting, 1132 Fifth Avenue. So 1132 Fifth Avenue, I don't think this made it into our presentation, but it's this nice looking cottage right here, a nice looking house. And you'll see skinny little land on either side. Well, this gentleman back in 2019, 2020, because I was under contract to buy this house. And this gentleman, the neighbor, who's the owner, wanted to subdivide this into 3 lots. And I told him, there is no way you're going to get this approved. There's 0 chance. They're way too small. Well, boy, was I wrong. So he did get it approved. These lots currently exist and have new construction on it. And here's the BZA approval. The BZA approved this. The lot sizes are 5,079 square feet and 4,268 square feet. And it was granted through the special exception, the same thing we are requesting. This was in 2019 and 2020. These are not grandfathered lots. These were created from scratch. The survey is right here. These are brand new lots. Not only was this approved in 2019 and 2020 from scratch, not grandfathered in, but from scratch, he also got a variance for a 42-inch, you can see the oak tree right there, the 42-inch oak tree. He got to cut that down. That's gone. Got a variance for that. That's the house. And as you can see, that used to have the oak tree, and now the oak tree is gone. This is a real picture of the house. Okay. He also got, if you look at this survey, the setback here on this building, I know you can't see that, but it says 2.2 feet. That was the setback. You got another variance for that. See how close those buildings are? It's 2.2 feet setback. Then this other lot here on this left side, this only has a 1 foot setback. 1 foot. Another variance granted. So when we asked to build a single family house in a single family residential neighborhood with a lot that does not disturb or encroach on any nature or trees, does not come close to any other buildings or, infringe upon anybody else's view or anything else we heard tonight. It's just amazing that this gentleman is able to get all these variances on 2 brand new lots created from scratch just a few years ago. And we can't get approval to build a single family house on an existing lot that used to have a single family house on it. So I'm gonna move on now to the December 14th meeting, okay? So I know everybody has been very anxious for us to have a conversation with Ms. Hamilton. I know you've heard a lot of he said, she said from Josh and her about coordinating these meetings and whether or not they've been very easy to attend. So I'm going to make it crystal clear with definitive, black and white, emails, conversations, and things like that, that Ms. Hamilton has made it extremely difficult for us to attend these meetings on purpose.
Hamilton or Higgins?
I'm sorry, Ms. Higgins. Thank you. Ms. Higgins. So you were correct. Josh had said he sent her an email asking if we could join for the December 14th meeting, which of course she said, I invite you to attend the neighborhood association. That's great. We were interested in going and certainly speaking to Ms. Higgins, Ms. Hamilton, and anybody else there who asked questions about the property. She did write him back. It's in email that you don't need to come. It was voted down and you don't need to come. Josh responded that he owns other property. I then emailed, I didn't think this was going to be a difficult thing to accomplish. I then also emailed that I own property and I would also like to attend. I did not get a response and he did not get a response. We were able to get the Zoom link anyway. Join via Zoom. It specifically said, host has kicked you out of the waiting room. I have a screenshot, he has a screenshot, other people have screenshots. It's not a technical glitch. That's not an accident. That's someone who doesn't want you to join the meeting. And in case you think, well, you don't really know, well, I joined by phone. And trust me, it was quite clear when I joined by phone, I was not welcome on this particular meeting, okay? So once I announced myself, who I was, and I wanted to speak about the house, she immediately asked me, what is your phone number? Because she wanted to disconnect me from the Zoom call, okay? Regardless, we were able to discuss briefly 9/13/5. I was able to get the minutes from 9/13/5 or what she's discussed with the other homeowners or neighborhood association. Okay, because that's really at the end of the day what's most important. They have 4 main concerns. Okay, we finally get to that. What are the main concerns? The first one is, we spoke about this last time, lot density. That is a good and fair question. I'm happy to answer the question about lot density. This particular house, which we have the slide, but this particular house takes up, as Josh said, is somewhere between 22 and 25% of the lot. So it's certainly within the standards of the city. The city has standards about how much the footprint of the building can cover for the land. Okay. At 20, let's just say it's 25%. That's certainly within the 40 or 50% that's allowed. Okay. So it can't be too dense. It's the same standard that's used on every single house in the city and the county. So if it's half the size or 25% and you're allowed 50, then mathematically it's conforming and fits. So to me, that kind of settles the question about density. There's a question about parking. She stated to the other residents that there's no parking. It says right here, there's no parking. That's never been the case. There is a driveway. There's always been a driveway for 2 cars, with required by the city as well. So we couldn't make a new construction house here without a driveway, even if we wanted to. So that is resolved. The size, Ms. Higgins stated in the minutes here that the proposed house is 1,400 square feet. The proposed house is 1,252 square feet. That's about 10% smaller than what she told other folks in the neighborhood. Okay. The final concern is the architectural style. Okay. Ms. Higgins had discussed that the previous home here was a shotgun style home. Okay. That's a bit subjective as to what style you like. Okay. But I also took the liberty, because Ms. Higgins lives in Ashleyville, Maryville, and I can look up her house. Okay. So the irony here is Ms. Higgins's personal home is 1,560 square feet. So she lives in a substantially larger house than the proposed 1,252 square foot house. Ms. Higgins lives in a brick ranch, not a shotgun house. The shotgun house was popular in the 1800s until 1920. The brick ranch was popular after World War II and into the 70s and 80s. Also interesting, her house was built in 1994. A fairly new house, practically new. Given the age of this community and the age of Charleston, I would put 30 years as a pretty darn new house. So I find it interesting the person with the largest objections has a house that's larger than what we've proposed, and yet thinks our house is too big, thinks we should be building a shotgun style house, a tiny little house, and she lives in a brick ranch, so not the same style. And also lives in a pretty much new house. 1994 is not that old. So, and Ms. Hamilton has pointed out, again, I might just reemphasize for the suggestion of that we should build a shotgun house. Forcing the property owner to build a tiny house infringes on their rights and impacts the value of their property. So I'm pretty sure Ms. Hamilton is probably a no too for the shotgun style home. So at the end of the day, folks, this is a single family residential neighborhood. The proposal is for a single family house. This is literally the sole purpose and design of the neighborhood, to accommodate houses and for people to live. The city of Charleston is in a housing crisis. The city council just met on this at the end of last year. It's a public meeting and discussion. This very same footprint on Brookfield was sold for $75,000 below the median price for West Ashley, which is $550 according to Realtor.com. The lots have been designed to be developed for residential use. This lot had a house on it previously. The special exception is designed to grandfather these lots into existing building codes. The neighborhood had some legitimate questions. I agree those are legitimate questions. Those have all been answered. All four concerns have been answered. Incorrect information was given. They've now all been answered. So I kindly request for you guys to reconsider the previous decision and grant the special exception for the lot size and the variance for the rear setback.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Anybody else who wishes to speak in support? Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I promise you I will be actually brief. Thank you for your time. Mr. Bean just mentioned that, my client, my name is Tom Craig, the Cobb Hand Law Firm, by the way. My client is attempting to build a single family residential home, modest size and superior quality in a residential neighborhood. I spoke last meeting about putting property to its best and most productive use. This property abuts a greenway. And last time, at the last hearing, I was a little bit, I was coming in a little bit unprepared. I just was recently retained. Now I've had a chance to look at all this, and I've got to tell you, I'm a little bit confused why this is such a fight. Specifically, this is the type of development this area would want. I mean, at least in my experience, you have, instead of some big box developer coming in and buying up the whole block and really impacting the character community, you have a responsible, reputable, small, local developer building homes that are, again, of superior quality and do meet the character of the neighborhood. I mean, I went through and took an actual tour of the neighborhood more recently, and I mean, it's a hodgepodge of houses. There are homes that are almost identical, at least, what's the word I'm looking for? Decorative nature and, same aesthetics throughout the neighborhood. Mr. Bean also mentioned that several of the homes in this, or the properties in the neighborhood were granted special exceptions pretty recently. Now I understand that the community does have concerns, but the principal objections here were, and I think not to be too redundant, but were density issues, negatively impacting the character of the community, and there was an enormous amount of emphasis placed at the last hearing on the fact that Mr. Blackwell hadn't done enough due diligence and met with the community enough specifically Ms. Higgins and the Ashley Maryville Neighborhood Association, notwithstanding the fact that the meeting was actually after this hearing, last hearing. So, for me, I'm coming into this a little bit blind. I encouraged them to go to the meeting because that was something that was, one, reiterated by the board. It was, I think, I can't remember who said it, but I know one of you guys said that it's a shame you guys didn't do more, work with the community more. So, hey, you guys got other properties here. You got to get in there and meet with these guys. And when I heard that they were both denied access to it, and I've listened to the recording of the hearing. I genuinely do not think that was a gesture of good faith as far as working with the community. Now, one of the things I also failed to reiterate at the last meeting is these guys have gone out and gotten pretty significant support within the community and have already accommodated Ms. Higgins' request for the driveway. That was her idea, at least to get the 2-car garage bit in there. At least that's according to Mr. Blackwell. So I don't think there's been any evidence to support the objections that there is a density issue. I haven't seen any evidence to support that whatsoever. I haven't seen any evidence to support the fact that this is going to negatively impact the character of the community. Again, there was an existing house on that lot. He's building a modest-sized single-family residence in a residential neighborhood, abutting a beautiful greenway. And I understand that some members of the community might not like it, but I don't think that it necessarily rises to the level of this is going to negatively impact the community. I haven't seen any real evidence of that. And so with that in mind, I would respectfully request that you guys grant both the variance and the special exception, because I think this is not only good for the community, but good for Charleston. This is an old historic neighborhood. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, I think this is the type of development we want, especially in these types of neighborhoods. I think talking to most Charlestonians, they don't want some big developers. I know that a lot of my clients that's what they're complaining about is big developers coming in and actually changing the character of the community. And so what I'm really worried about is, this type of fight really does discourage local investment and local rehabilitation of these communities that's desperately needed. So with that, I'll yield. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, anybody else who wishes to speak in support of the request for reconsideration? All right, seeing no one else, do we have anybody to speak in opposition to the request for reconsideration?
Good evening. My name is Marcia Higgins, and I'm president of the Maryville Ashleyville Neighborhood Association. I'm not quite sure where to start, but anyhow, I'll try. And the comments that were made by Mr. Garrett, let's use that as an example. He talked about the fact that he had minutes from our meeting. He was reading from an agenda. That was an agenda for our meeting, not minutes. An agenda is different from minutes. And in the agenda, it did have that the house could be 14,000 square feet. The purpose of Mr. Blackwell coming to the meeting in the first place was to clarify any kind of information that was not correct. An attempt was made with Mr. Blackwell to attend our meeting from the very beginning. He said he wasn't coming to the November 9th meeting, which was just after the November voter zoning meeting. He said he couldn't come, he was not coming. He got very upset and he felt that why is it that we could say anything about him building a house in our community? He didn't like it. But I still invited him to come to the December 14th meeting. And I invited him immediately after. I invited him twice. But he went on and put this item on the agenda for the December 3rd meeting. Well, why is it that he cannot have waited to put that item back on the agenda until after he attended the neighborhood association meeting? That was his decision, to do that. Now, Mr. Blackwell and his friends tried to sabotage our neighborhood association meeting. Yes, Mr. Ford Smith, after the meeting, he said he was interested in being a part. I gave him my email address, which I do with anybody in the community said they would like to. We don't, check them out or anything like that. We do have our own constitution. We are a very organized neighborhood association. We have a constitution that if somebody wants to come and be a part, we invite them, come on in. And then after that, we go into whether or not they meet the requirements for membership. And so, yes, he was invited to come, but then he wanted to present a plan that he had for building a home in the community, some kind of project, and he wanted to be on the agenda for that. I told him I was sorry, our agenda was already made out. Our agenda is usually sent out 5 to 7 days in advance before the meeting. We're very organized. We just don't do things haphazardly. And but they wanted to come, and so Mr. Ford was in error sharing our link. The link was sent to him to come, but he felt the need to share the link with Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Garrett, and another one of his friends to come to the meeting. And the tone of the emails they sent me put me on guard that it was their intent to come. They had a right to attend the meeting. They were property owners. Well, eligibility for membership is just not to be a property owner. You have to be a homeowner to be a member. But if somebody wants to come to the neighborhood association meeting, we invite them to come. Come on and be a part. And then we get into that. We have our own constitution that addresses membership and all of these other issues that he's been talking about. We have our history that he talked about that I really don't think that they understand our history. We are a historic Black settlement community. Yes, we have hodgepodge sizes of property lots. We are going through gentrification. To us, that's an ugly word. Gentrification. Do you know what it means to have a community that's going through gentrification? It is as if the community is being taken away from us. We welcome the improvement in our community. Our community needs improvement. We've asked the city, some of the older homes that are there, some of them have been there for years vacant. Why not have a builder to take on these homes and renovate them? Our situation is unique because we are going through gentrification. That's what it's all about. So therefore, we have started trying to protect our community, specifically in reference to density, the overcrowding of the community, houses being so close together, the lack of parking spaces. Oh yes, we have a problem with drugs. We don't have a lot of crime in our community. However, we are partners with the Charleston City Police Department. And we work with the Charleston City Police Department to help in addressing the issues of our community. We are partners with them. We have a representative from the Charleston City Police Department at just about every one of our meetings. The lieutenant of Team 4. We call him Lieutenant Rojo because of his last name. Nobody can pronounce it, so he said, call me Lieutenant Rojo, and we do. We use them as a resource. We use them as a helper. We want our community to thrive and flourish. We welcome the diversity. We have no problems with the diversity. We have whites who've been living in our community for some time, since I've been sitting here. I got a text message from a white resident, concern that she had. It's on the agenda for our February meeting about cats. It's important to her, so it's important to us. There's stray cats. There's a little fraud going on in the community. There's stray cats. Somebody said, don't stop feeding the cats, you know, but we will discuss it as an issue in our community. So please, here you are trying to portray me as some kind of a monster and comparing my personal home to your project. That's absurd. The home I live in is on the property of Mr. Middleton Grant. He was my grandfather. The historic town of Maryville had its own mayors. He was one of the mayors. There was an old house there. My mother was his daughter. The family decided we were going to take that house down and build my mother a new house. That's the home I live in now. I'm retired. Worked for the state of North Carolina for over 35 years. I can live in other communities besides Ashleyville. It's my personal decision to live in the Ashleyville community and help the community. That was my personal decision to do that. And I'm going to continue to do it as long as I can. I don't represent what our neighborhood association address. I do. Yes, sir, I do. We have very active meetings. People give their opinions. And I address what they think, what they want. Very seldom I use the word I. I use the word we. And that's what we try to project. After every meeting, what do I say? Please, don't forget to be a good neighbor. We want to be good neighbors. But that does not mean that a builder can come whose main focus is to make money. Yes, we have these small lots. If I had anything to do with it, I would ask the city to buy that lot. It's right by the bikeway. Yes, there was a shotgun house that one of the members described to us in a meeting. The house was a small house, and she wanted to be here tonight, but she could not come because she has a situation that she had to deal with, a family situation. So yes, it was a shotgun house, a narrow house, a small house. I went there as a child and played with the children there. The Rainey family. So you're saying that, yes, some of these variances were approved in the past? Yes, they were. And guess what? We supported some of them. Yes, we did. To be approved. And some of them we did not support. And some of them we lost the battle on it, and some of them we won. But our focus is the density of our community, the overcrowdedness. We have new homes now being built on Tribe Street. Tribe Street's not a very good street. But we have worked to get that street paved. Not only that street, but other streets in our community to help improve it. Yes, when we see them getting ready to build a house on the, we want to know, well, what size is what's the lot size? What's the house size? What's the parking spaces going to be? And we do, and we get that information. Now, the houses that they're building on Tribe Street now, they meet the regulations, the guidelines, the ordinances of the city of Charleston. So therefore, we have no objections to it. A lot of people talk, that's a big talk of the community. Oh, they're building all these houses on Tribe Street. But it's my role to explain to them, the houses meet the ordinances of the community, of the city ordinances. And we're pleased that they're larger lots, 6,000 square feet. And that's just the way it is. And they did sabotage our neighborhood association meeting, which was totally inappropriate. Totally inappropriate. And was probably against the law because they were not given the link to the meeting. But somebody else, one of their friends, shared the link with them. That's why they were not allowed in the meeting. Our meeting was we got argumentative, rude to each other. And so I didn't let them in. Allowed Mr. Garrett to say what he wanted to say. When he sneaked in the meeting by, instead of using the link, he tried to use the link. He sneaked in the meeting, he called. We have other people who call. You don't see their name, you just see their phone numbers. Oh, I let him in. A lot of the phone numbers I recognized, and I let him in. But it was a mistake. If I knew it was Mr. Garrett, I wouldn't have let Mr. Garrett in the meeting. And that's the prerogative of the host. I did get a message from Link, from Zoom. They wanted me to make a report on it. I didn't make a report on it. I felt I handled the situation. And that's all I have to say. But please know that we are a historic Black community. We're going through gentrification. It's not easy. There's some parts of the city of Charleston, America Street, other streets in downtown Charleston, predominantly Black with beautiful homes. They went through gentrification. The Blacks moved out. Don't say they were forced out. And now this is a predominantly white community. I have no issues with Black or white. I don't. But I'm not stupid. I do recognize that at times it is important and significant to others. We asked the city of Charleston for an overlay to help protect our community from these kinds of situations. We were denied that. And so whatever decision you make this evening, you have to accept it. But we ask you not to approve this request for an appeal. We felt that we presented our information very well at the meetings before these. We don't have anything against these gentlemen, but we're certainly not going to let them run over us because of their wanting to make money. We will not allow it. So there are many issues that confront you today. Many issues that confront Mr. Robert Summerfield. We know what he's experiencing. We have asked him questions and asked him to explain this. We had a representative from his zoning department at one of our meetings. Miss Allison Craig, we requested, please, to have somebody to come from the zoning and explain some of these things to us, and she did. And now she's our contact for questions that we have. I spoke to her today. So we're trying to survive as a community. Our history is rich. This is our history. We just didn't, we researched it. And soon it'll be displayed on Carl Richardson Park. So we cherish it. And we want to tell it. We want to tell it. That's one of our goals. To tell our history to others. So here we are. Isn't it something? Here we are. In the city of Charleston. I'm a Charlestonian. Grew up here. Left for 35 years. Was my goal to come back. And I did. And I'm doing what I want to do. Working to help my community. Now, Miss Hamilton wrote the letter. I read it. I couldn't tell whether she was for or against. She talked about setting a precedent. That's one thing that we say all the time. When these things are approved, the board sets the precedent. It sets the precedent. They're approved. So now, oh, look, you have this lot, that lot, all of those that he named that is of insufficient size. Why? Because the board approved it and set a precedent. So I do thank you. I appreciate you listening. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So we're not asking for any, we go lot by lot, and we are a neighborhood association. We're not a homeowners association. The only thing we address is the city's guidelines, the city's ordinances. Are they following their own rules and regulations? That's our focus. But I do thank you and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak in opposition?
Yes, we need a light by Emmanuel and St. Andrews Boulevard, because I go to church there, Emmanuel Church, and it's hard getting out there. So we have to have a light there. So who can I speak to about having a light put there?
After the hearing, that's not something that this board can do. So after the hearing, you can talk with somebody.
And we were at our March meeting. We will address that. We already invited Miss Katie Zimmerman.
Good.
Charleston Rooms. We're going to have our two representatives from the city, Mr. Tinkler, and from the county, Mr. Middleton, to be there to talk about this issue.
Good, thank you. All right, anybody else wishes to speak in opposition? All right, hearing no one else in opposition, we will give an opportunity for rebuttal.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'll make it quick. I know this is kind of long, but December 3rd, she's talking about waiting for the next meeting. This board set the deferment to December 3rd. So if that was the case, another meeting could have maybe been called in the middle of that, not, hey, I'm gonna send it to you for the 14th, we're holding to the 14th, and that's it. So I mean, I can't really pick and choose when this was actually stated in this meeting for a deferment to the 3rd. When we talk about renovating homes, she's wanting the city or a builder, what are we doing here? I renovated 963 Main Street. The house was falling apart. It was a nightmare. People could get hurt in some of these homes. They're in such bad shape, and we're spending money to do it. And I understand, yes, things are for profit. Okay, but the city, I can tell you, the taxpayers are not going to pay to fund everybody's homes. That's what investment does. Positive investment. I can tell you the home that I'm speaking about is right across the street from Miss Higgins. I hope she likes the way it looks because it looks 20 times better than what it was originally. It was a hazard. Okay, it's the same. And I understand this home is a new construction, but we are renovating homes. 924 Main Street, completely covered, no central AC and heat. It's been there the whole time. Full building permits we're renovating currently. Okay, and then when she talks about outside of the zoning and the requirements, we understand that's why we're here to ask for these special exceptions. I'm not trying to break any codes or anything like that. If the lot's 6,000 square feet, I understand that. I know the two gentlemen that are building the homes on those lots on Tribe Street. But there are very few and far between that are 6,000 square foot lots in that neighborhood. Majority of them going back to the old original plat from 1936, it's hand drawn. That's why a lot of these, they say they're 50 by 100, but they're like 4,700 because they didn't have the proper measurement tools that we have today that are so precise when you do a survey. You see a lot of them like that. And the reason why we're here in this situation with this property really is because it is meeting a hardship. It's very, the lot shaped, it's weird. I mean, it's not square, so you can't fit anything. If you do, it's going to, whatever you put there and try to fit in that setbacks, one will be so small that it could not be a living condition, one, for somebody in standards. Two, it would mess up the community. It would not give a good curb appeal to the community. I'm not trying to build cookie cutter vinyl homes. These are hardy board homes and they're generally different elevations to them, different models. I'm not in the game of building large developments with 3 models and it looks the same all the way around. And I understand her perspective, okay? I understand that I'm, the gentrification thing's not a great word. I understand, because you know what? My parents are from here. My grandparents are from here. They worked at the shipyard that no longer exists. Back when they were young, and that was shipped off to Norfolk, Virginia. And a lot of people had hardships during that time. They owned homes in Shakora area, which Shakora doesn't even exist anymore, the high school. So I understand her situation. I grew up towards North Charleston by Ashley Phosphate. I played baseball in a predominantly Black neighborhood. I have nothing against anybody of any race at all. This is just building a home, and I try to mind my business and just build a home. But I understand her perspective. I do. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody or bully anybody or doing any of those things. And I hope after this is all said and done, we can get to a point where we can all be cordial and come to a point where, we can meet and have open dialogue with everybody. And when I mean open dialogue, that is like, hey, I welcome the city of Charleston to put an overlay in there. You know why? Because then it gives us parameters of where we can go. I'm able to go straight to a website and it clearly is in black and white. House has to be built out of hardy board material. House has to have a certain size windows, certain style of windows. I love that. You know why? Because then I know how to work within the fines of the law. But now I do not know because I'm following the code of the city of Charleston in terms of the height of the house, the driveway, those things. And I understand the lot we're asking for exceptions, but the lot is just not shaped the way it's supposed to be. I mean, it's not square. I can't fit the house in there. Even if I went and got another model, it's not going to be something you want on that lot. And even Ms. Hamilton has written that in her letter. I would not want to see something that is going to impact the character of the neighborhood due to the size. Okay, so like I said, I understand, you know, and putting her on guard, I've never, in these emails, I've legitimately have said each time, I'd like to join a neighborhood association meeting. Great. Can you please send me the link? The response is you've been denied. That's literally the gist of the whole email. I say nothing else of like, hey, I turn around, I say, I understand, but I own other property in the neighborhood. That's it. There's nothing else to this conversation. It's all an email. I can print it and provide it. You know, but like I said, I like to work this out. Hopefully you'll approve it. And I appreciate your time tonight and, you know, listening to us. I know it's been the third time that we've been up here, you know, and I hope that you're able to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. So let me make a couple of things clear procedurally. What we are voting on this evening is whether or not to reconsider the applicant's application for a variance and application for a special exception. And in fact, when I say that, it probably needs to be said the other way, and I would prefer that anyone who makes a motion will need to, I think it would be better to make a motion to either approve or deny the request for reconsideration for the special exception first. And then we'll have a motion to approve or deny the request for reconsideration on the variance. So first special exception, then variance. That does not mean that a vote to approve the request for reconsideration means that the variance or the special exception is approved. What that means is we'll all have the pleasure of hearing these issues once again at the next meeting or whenever it can be scheduled. And so with that said, is there any discussion, any questions, anything the board needs to understand? I go ahead.
I just wanted to make it also clear for the record, because any approval for any reconsideration of these would be treated as a new item. That means that it will be at least a 30-day window, because we will have to do notification of the property, newspaper notice, all of those things as if it were a newly submitted application. It's not a deferred item or anything of that nature. So I do want to be clear, this would not be a next meeting thing. It's at least a 30 days from today's hearing based on our agenda deadlines and what have you.
Now, I also view my role as the chair as relatively neutral, but I do try to remain objective in all of our decision making. I do want to point out to you that two things. Number one, that I do believe that the letter from Ms. Hamilton that was not part of the record at the last hearing is material to the issues and would have potentially influenced voting members of the board. Number two, I think it applies both to the variance and the special exception. In other words, I think that letter would have been relevant to the decision-making on both the special exception and the variance. So I believe that if it's found that there are grounds to reconsider based upon that letter, for one, that it would be only right for the other to be similarly treated, because I think the letter speaks to both the special exception and variance, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, on the basis of that, would we be voting in a single vote?
I think
both items.
It would be more efficient, but I think based upon the without waiving or revealing any information or communications that was made to us during executive session. It's my understanding that we are to vote separately.
This is a point of order, Mr. Chairman. Since the request before you is for reconsideration, you are limited to the evidence that was in the record or should have been included in the record at the prior hearing. No new evidence can be considered as part of the request to reconsider. But if a reconsideration is granted, it's de novo, and that new evidence could be presented at the rehearing, the new hearing on that item.
Okay. Well, let me make sure that I understand that correctly. The letter, if it was not part of the record, but could or should have been part of the record, then that is sufficient.
Yes, sir.
Can you pull up the original application, the 10-2 application?
And it's probably semantic, but I think the special exception should go first, because if there's no special exception, there's no ability to do anything. Right? There's no ability to build a residential home on that lot without a special exception. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the special exception is independent of the variance, but the variance is dependent on the special exception.
I would entertain a motion to either approve or deny the request to reconsider the special exception first.
I'll make a motion to approve reconsideration of the special exception.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. So we will hear again the application on the special exception at some date.
At least
more than
30 days from
in
now.
the future.
Yeah,
In
we'll
a
have to
regular
confirm a
hearing.
date, but everything will be noticed, so it'll be in the paper, the property will be noticed. We will send out, just as we do with any new application, because it will be treated as such.
Okay. All right, and now I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the request to reconsider the variance decision.
Can I get you to pull that application back up again? I just want to be able to look at it.
And again, the reason that I think this letter has some materiality on the variance is because she specifically, Ms. Hamilton specifically says the only option left for the property owner are to ask for a variance. So she does specifically address variance requests in the letter.
With that information and that thought, I'll make a motion to approve reconsideration of the variance.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion to approve the request for reconsideration by Mr. McKay, seconded by Mr. Huey. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion to reconsider the decision on the variance is also granted. That will be set at some point in time, no sooner than 30 days at a regular meeting of the BZA. All right, so that concludes our meeting, and thank you very much.
Mr. Blackwell, if you would